Okay, welcome. Whoop. Welcome, folks. Welcome to our third Design Jobs AMA. Really excited about this session because we have not as much speakers, but more like friends joining in for this conversation. Where is everyone joining in from? We know we are streaming to a few different places. So let's see where the software can pull all the folks from. So I'm seeing some familiar names. Jason is joining in. We have folks from GTA, Mississauga. Okay, so today we are talking to our friends from Wattpad, two folks that must seem like really familiar names for those of you who are in the DesignX Slack group. We've also hosted a couple of events in their space. In fact, one of the speakers team leads joining in from Wattpad. She was also part of our DesignX team for quite some time. So really, again, excited to welcome both these familiar faces back to a DesignX event. And we'll be talking all about the product experience designer role that Wattpad is hiring for. So we'll get to know more about what Wattpad is all about, what the company is, what the product entails, what the design team entails, and what this role is all about. So I will welcome both our friends. So joining in, first of all, Andrew Chuck. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. So Andrew is the head of experience design at Wattpad, and along with Andrew is Han Bang. Hey, Han.
Hey, everybody.
Han is the senior product experience designer at Wattpad as well. So welcome both of you. Really excited to have you folks here.
And the matching outfits were a complete coincidence.
I know.
Backgrounds like not planned.
That tree merging in is too much of a coincidence.
You're not sharing the same Zoom background.
I know.
It's to show how in sync we are as a design team. We literally did not plan this, and it just it's plan all.
If you're thinking of applying, for this role, now you see the level of detail you need to go into each and everything the team does.
You now know how you should dress for the interview.
Exactly. So I didn't. I shared a lot about how, both of you are really familiar faces in our community. Folks have seen you contributing to conversations quite a bit, but it would help if we can start with short introductions on yourselves and your roles.
Okay, sure. So my name is Andrew Chak. I'm head of experience design at Wattpad. So that includes overseeing our product experience designers like Han, as well as our experience research practice. So we are responsible for understanding our users, what makes them tick, what gives them value, and making sure that users have Wattpad as the best part of their day. And as by way of introduction as to what Wattpad does, we are an online community of 90 million users. We've grown fantastically during this pandemic, where it's all around storytelling. So we have amazing writers that publish their stories on Wattpad, and then they reach a global audience on Wattpad. And then through the data, we can identify great stories that get turned into movies and TV shows. So things like the After series or the Kissing Booth on Netflix, those are all Wattpad stories and are global phenomenons. And so we are looking to grow our design team. And we actually have a few open roles in the new year that we are looking to bring people on for.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. So this is not just for one role, but kind of like the start of the whole lineup of designers you're recruiting for.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that intro and also the brief about the company as well, Andrew. Han.
Hello. Hi, everybody. My name is Han Bang. Probably not too stranger of a face or a name to many of you. Very active on DesignX, was part of the DesignX team. Had a fabulous time there. So I've been at Wattpad for about 2 years now. I'm a senior product designer, kind of hopped around a few different squads. So know my way fairly know my way fairly well around the company, but recently joined the community risk and reputation sort of business area, where we ensure that we are building tools to keep our community safe. So things like block and mute, and making sure that our community stays as inclusive and as positive as it is, in a safe space for everyone, including all of our 90 million users.
Wow. Wow, that sounds really, really interesting. How many of such kind of squads or kind of teams are there at Wattpad?
Well, so we have 5 different business areas, and within business areas, there can be 1 or 2 squads underneath each of them. So as Han mentioned, she's part of community risk and reputation. So that's about, because we are a user-generated content platform, community risk and reputation is about making sure that our community is safe, that we have good, healthy, positive interactions between users, as well as making sure that our content is safe, that we're protecting our content and making sure that content is appropriate on our platform. We have a growth and engagement business area, which is about driving user growth, engaging users to find stories and get more engaged on Wattpad. We have a content and creators business area, which is about engaging writers and making sure that Wattpad is a platform for them to entrust with their stories and want to publish their stories on our platform. We also have brand solutions, which is about our advertising partners and delivering kind of a delightful and relevant ad-sponsored experience for our free reader base. And then we also have a monetization business area, which is about providing value to our users such that they would want to subscribe to our premium subscription offerings, as well as discover our kind of premium paid stories that we have on our platform. So we really have our kind of areas kind of straddling across the different reader and writer journeys. And it's really focused on how do we deliver greater value to our users such that when they want to escape, when they want or seeking entertainment, that Wattpad is their platform of choice to consume stories as well as to write stories.
Right. That's incredible. How many designers on average? Because I know it would vary quite a bit depending on like the business goals and other things. How many designers, or what does one of these squads look like, if you had to generalize?
Why don't you take that?
Yeah. So our squads are all cross-functional. So we, like Andrew mentioned, sort of own an area of the product. And so usually we'll have a designer sit on the squad as well as a product manager. We do support obviously across all the platforms. So we have iOS, Android, web, and then Applet. We also have a delivery lead, and I would say the closest relationship that a designer would have on the squad would be with a product manager. We do have a team of researchers that are sort of centralized and sort of spread across, but we do, again, we don't rely on them to just conduct our research. We work alongside with them very closely. And so I would say on a daily basis, your main interaction will be with your product managers, and then obviously the engineers that are going to be building out your designs.
Right. And Han, in the last 2 years, how many of these squads have you been on?
Officially 3, but also like unofficially sort of supporting a few. And so I think all of the experiences, it's just like I'm blown away. And the reason why I came back to a product company is because I wanted to work with really technical and like smart folks. And I can attest that all the engineers were very self-driven. And so all the engineers and everyone working is just a hustler and always working to get things done. And it's never like someone telling you have to do something. It's almost always like, let's do this thing. And it's like, okay, let's do it.
Right.
Well, and also like the designers, they do focus a lot on the work within their squad, but we also have a lot of horizontal practices. So for example, Han's part of our accessibility team. And so that is something that touches across the squads. And she's one of her recent projects is about like, how do we provide orientation and onboarding and education cross-functionally across squads in terms of how to adopt best practices as it pertains to accessibility. So oftentimes the designers are actually working across squads when it comes to specific kind of practice areas.
That's so interesting. I think quite a few times, you see folks leaning more towards working in an agency or like studios because there's a lot of variety of projects you can work on and experiences. But I think this the squad structure as well as working horizontally sounds like Han had quite a few different experiences and I'm sure learnings just from these 2 years. So that's really interesting. Okay. Also, a quick reminder to everyone watching: this is an AMA session, so feel free to put in your questions in the chat, and as and when where the conversation is going, I'll try and pull those questions in. So, a logistical question, because it's always folks get really interested, especially in the current scenario. What does the what's the location factor of the role? Are you open to remote? And when you say remote, how wide is that?
So currently Wattpad has two kind of main locations. One is in the Toronto area, where we're downtown at 36 Wellington. And then there is, we also have a second headquarters out in Halifax. And so right now, what we do is we do concentrate our recruitment within proximity to those locations. However, we are all working remotely now. We've been distributed since March. I can remember it's like Friday, March 13th was our last day in the office.
Right.
And we've been all remote ever since then. And going forward, we see remote as being kind of like the default option right now. And so we don't you don't necessarily have to come into the office. Actually, no one's going into the office right now. So we're very accommodating in terms of people being distributed. The main thing will be like a factor like time zone, being in a place where you can meet during kind of core business hours. The other limitation, though, is that it does need to be in Canada and preferred in Ontario and Nova Scotia because of tax laws and you need to be setting up like a business to be officially registered in particular locales. So we will normally have our employees within those kind of locations within Ontario and Nova Scotia.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much for answering that. I think apart from just this conversation, so many other folks are just trying to kind of understand what's happening and what the new reality would look like. And as you said, the legal implications, tax implications are also things that everyone's still trying to figure it out. So Andrew and Han, I know that, and again, this is a quick clarification based on Andre's question. I know initially when we posted the role, it was a contract role, and that was just one role. But now it seems like from what you mentioned that it's quite a few roles you'll be hiring for. So is this only contract? Is this full-time?
It's actually changed to only be full-time roles now. So so we have a few full-time roles that are opening up in the new year, kind of staggered across the year. So definitely, so it's great. We have a few full-time roles that we'd love to bring people on for.
Yeah.
Amazing. Also, someone just asked about, and I was going to go into the kind of the seniority aspect. So are these roles, are there any, to Reina's question, any specific internships that are being offered, or it's specific to the 3 to 8 year?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it is geared towards people that have experience. And the reason for that is because the designer needs to be able to work independently and provide design leadership within their squad. Right. So within a given squad, you are likely the only designer, and that's more the norm. So that designer needs to be very comfortable in working within that environment. And when you're within a squad, you're like with your own mini company, so to speak. Han, why don't you kind of add to that?
Yeah, and I mean, I think one of the things that was maybe causing a little bit of confusion here was when we first posted, it was actually a backfill for my parental leave. But we've actually, with the growth of the company, realized, you know what, we need to add to the team. And so I think whoever's coming in, depending on where they're going to be allocated, again, is going to need to provide that leadership because the squads are so independent. We'll need someone that has a strong design voice to advocate for design. Obviously, you'll have the support of the design team, but because everyone is on their squads, you won't get that support that you'll need if you were in more of a junior role. And so I think, if anything, it would be more of a disservice to junior folks if they were to, you know, be landed in this position, because there isn't that level of support that we've built in just yet. I know we're always in talks about adding, you know, junior folks to the team and growing the design community in Toronto. But I think that might be a 2021 thing where we can build out a very, I think, a thought out process and a formalized support structure so that you are going to succeed when you join Wattpad as an intern.
Right. Absolutely makes a lot of sense. And Olivera had a question about understanding more around what a squad structure looks like, and I think it would also help if you can speak because you already explained quite a bit about, you know, how squads work. And I had, you know, an add-on question around why you had the 3 to 8 year experience as the benchmark, which is you don't see that often. You know, you either see 3 to 5 years experience or 5 to 8. But as now you talk more about squads, I'm like, depending on the squad, kind of makes sense. So if you could explain a little more about how those squads are, what a squad structure looks like, and how that impacts the experience level.
Okay, so the squad structure is so the roles that are on there, we have a product manager who's kind of critical to leading the squad and setting the priorities. And then we have our technical lead, and then we have experience design. And so what's critical there is the ability to provide leadership in terms of like what are the priorities for the squad to work on, what are the key problems that we need to work on. So it's the translation of here's our business goals, and then what's the corresponding user problem, the prioritized user problems that we should be solving for in service to those business goals. So that's the range of, you need to have enough experience and tenure to be able to do that. And in terms of the experience, we look for people that have built and shipped product. Because when you've built and shipped product, you see the value of iteration. You see how you learn and pivot based on those learnings. So having that experience to be able to take in the inputs and the user feedback, and then knowing how to iterate and build upon that is really critical.
Yeah, and I would have to add to that and say that there's, I think, a big role of why that long tenure is because you need to be able to translate not only business goals into user goals, but also what do user goals, how can user goals sort of contribute to the business goals? So it's sort of like a vice versa relationship there, and making sure that, you know, users or our candidates know the value of what user or success metrics look like. I know that is something that we're always constantly trying to learn and evolve at Wattpad, especially when it comes to user metrics, which can be a little bit more less quantifiable rather than compared to, let's say, revenue dollars. And so I think that's a really big piece of what we're looking for is, great, you've shipped product. Well, we hope that you've shipped a product, but do you understand like what made it a success? What made it a failure, and what did you do with those results if it was a success or a failure? Because we need to apply those constantly at Wattpad.
And the other thing is that we are a more complex product because we're not like a utility or a function. It's not like you kind of come in and do a transaction, go in and out, and we're optimizing just a conversion funnel, right? We have big questions and problems like, okay, how do we get someone to read more? Right? And we have highly engaged users that spend a lot of time on our platform, and getting them to spend even more time on our platform is a hard problem to solve for. So there's a lot of, it's really interesting, you know, coming from the banking and telco coming into Wattpad, I had to rethink my research approach, my user approach completely differently, because I came from transactional systems over to one, which this is a system that really is driven by emotion. We are an emotional progress application, and so it's a real fun, interesting space to work within. It's very different than like leading someone down a funnel.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. I think when you have humans at both the creation part and consumption part, yeah, I can imagine how, like, yeah, you can predict, how they'll behave in the near future, but those behaviors start changing. So yeah, and especially at the scale you're talking, like you shared 90 million users. It's like, uh, I don't know why absurdly, like I was just, the quote came to my mind, like with great, kind of numbers come great responsibility. And it's like on every designer's T-shirt at Wattpad, it's a lot of responsibility to be making design decisions that impact all these habits for so many folks.
Well, I mean, when we think about the combination of the designers and the researcher, it's like each of us is responsible for 10 million users.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's true.
I should ask for a raise then.
I know, right?
Those are indeed big shoes to fill. So Andrew, and you kind of touched upon the research aspect. For most folks who've been in the Toronto design ecosystem for some time, I think Wattpad definitely is known as one of those companies where research is really important, and not just like every company says it, but you can tell the companies that really mean it, even from kind of like any talks that folks would have heard you give, or any content that comes out related to design. Research is always a critical part, and in the job description, even again, the label is product experience designer, and you mentioned that there is a separate experience research team as well. You still mentioned that it's a big plus if the designer also has quite some experience with research. So if you could share a little more about that, and also, someone had a question that are there separate research roles also that are coming up, or it's more of a hybrid role?
Yes. So we will be hiring for a research role in the new year as well. So please be on the lookout for that. And then research is central to what we do because it's about understanding users. We have to start with understanding users. And so we invest a lot in understanding what are the user problems that are going to drive behaviors. And we use a dual track agile process. So there's discovery and delivery, very much grounded on understanding user value, behaviors, motivations. So that, because at the end of the day, users are the ones that determine our success or failure. They have an option to choose to use Wattpad or use some other platform to get their entertainment and reading needs. So, we can't make them spend more time, but we can understand what motivates them to use Wattpad and make sure that we deliver that value to them.
Right.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I think, yes, we do have a research team, but again, as the product designer sitting on the squad, you are responsible for, thinking of what research might be applicable to solving a certain problem. Some of the things I always talk about when I'm talking to bootcamp students is it's not a linear process. It's not a checklist, right? It's the way that we see research is it's a tool. It's tool sets. So if you have a lot of different experiences with different research methods, that's great because your toolbox is filled with different things that you can do to hammer the nail into the metaphorical wood.
Right.
So I think that can come from a lot of different places. So you can research, there's usability and all of the ones that you hear about, but then there's also ones that we conduct that maybe isn't so familiar, which is like diary studies. We do that because we wanted to understand the daily habits of where Wattpad fits into our users' lives. And so understanding, I think for us, understanding that there are a variety of research methods and what they're used to help solve is going to be a very key thing that we look for when we interview candidates, because again, we see a lot of people doing really great research work, but when we ask like, why did you do that? It can be a tricky one to answer. And so making sure that folks understand why that is, because we don't apply the same research methods to each and every single problem that we solve.
Right. Right. That's really helpful. Really helpful. And I love the part around you mentioned around it not being like a checklist and just doing it for the sake of it. And again, I think it all kind of also comes full circle when you talk about the squad structure and the responsibilities each designer has on that squad. So makes sense, why you are looking for a little more cross-functional kind of skills when it comes to design and research. This is more of an operational question. So as you're hiring for quite a few roles, if folks are looking to join in Q2 or April onwards for next year, do you still encourage them to start the conversations now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What we find is that, it's really important for us to get the right fit. And so it does take us a while to find the right candidate, and it works both ways. We want to make sure that Wattpad is a good fit for you as much as you are a fit for Wattpad. So if you are interested, let's start the conversation sooner rather than later. And yeah, oftentimes it does take a little bit of time to kind of work through it, right? And so knowing that you're interested in having that initial conversation with us is a great place to start.
Right. Thanks, Andrew. Michael, we did. So Michael's asking about specific questions that designers squads are responsible for. So we did discuss that. I would say in the first 10 minutes of the AMA, but Michael has an interesting kind of follow-up question, which is like, how do these all squads then sync up? How does that kind of alignment between different squads happen? And maybe if you can answer to more of the product business layer, but then also around the domain layer, like do all designers, like how do you manage that around how design as a team still is able to sync up and unify when they're spread across squads?
Okay, well, I'll talk about like at an overall level. The thing that unifies us is the user journey, a reader and writer journey. And for that, what we identify is what are the different pathways that users take to get value on our platform. And we identify like which are the moments in that journey that are the greatest kind of growth enablers, as well as the areas in which there's greatest risk. And so having a shared understanding of that journey is how all the designers are linked together, where Han is working on something about, say, filtering content in a particular way to keep the content safe, or the exposure of content safe on our platform. Whereas another designer is working about, okay, how do we link in recommendations and make the best recommendations for stories to readers, and how does that all work together? So a shared understanding of that journey is what creates that alignment. But the other thing is our practice level. The designers do meet weekly, where we meet on things such as like reviewing our design systems and components and kind of the shared elements that are across the designers. So we have these horizontal practices that go across like accessibility as well, where the design team is regularly connected on those horizontal practices and making sure that we're all synced up on those.
Right. Yeah, and I would have to say that as a company that was work from home friendly from before the pandemic, we've made very explicit ceremonies to share updates and making sure that we are sharing across. And so that's translated really well into the remote world, where you have to be more explicit when you're communicating, because you don't have the chance encounter in the hallways anymore. And so I would say that we do make very explicit efforts to share and make sure that people are syncing up. And again, we're a very like open communication. So, making sure that we're always posting in like public Slacks that are relevant to particular topics, I think is super important. Again, in today's work from home, where you just have to over communicate because things are mixed.
Very true. Very true. As we are coming towards the end of the AMA, so a quick few questions. There are, if you are in the DesignX Slack group, you've seen at least, I would say in the last 1.5 months, like 45 days to 60 days, there have been a lot of roles being posted, and more for experienced folks. Whereas what I'm hearing from design leaders or hiring managers is that they are having trouble kind of finding good folks. So it seems like, again, I don't have really hard data to back this up, but it seems like experienced folks have a lot of options right now. So why Wattpad? Why would they look at, the Wattpad design team what is kind of the biggest reason that you would say someone should definitely consider applying for these roles?
So with Wattpad, like we have just grown tremendously over the past year. The pandemic has created a great growth opportunity for Wattpad. Wattpad was already growing quite aggressively, and now with people need entertainment more than ever, and so we are really building for growth in the new year. And so if you like hard problems, if you like getting really deeper in your kind of experience design UX kind of practice, Wattpad has a lot of growth opportunity in that. We're also a place that really we encourage experimentation. And we encourage our designers to experiment and grow in our practice, and seek out the areas that they want to grow into. Like Han, for example, has done that with accessibility, but also in terms of just design thinking and remote facilitation methods. So I think that if you like growing and learning and really mastering your craft, then Wattpad, I really believe is a great place for that.
Yeah, and I'll definitely add on to that, where it's like, yes, it's complex problems, but they're also very diverse problems. And then we, regularly, like I would say every year, 2 years, we'll like revisit the SWOT structures and be like, is this somewhere that you want to stay in? Is there other problem areas that you might want to enter into and try your hand at? And so I think I love that ability, that you don't feel like this is the only problem or set of users I'll ever interact or design for. We have 90 million users, so there is going to be so much nuance to all of our problems, which is great because it's going to be gnarly to solve. But you have the support of the design team. I'm super biased because obviously I'm on the team, but I love our team. We're so supportive of each other, and we're always pushing each other to be better designers, and we're always there to kind of give that loving critique, but again, critique that is going to push you as a designer. And our office is pretty dope, but it'll be a while before we go back to that.
That's true. A lot of, I think, offices are thinking about that. Last two questions. So it's again, I personally known both of you, known just kind of from being in the community, being active, known the team a little bit. What is one skill set that you think or you might be focusing more on, and Andrew, that you currently might feel is not that pronounced on the team right now, if there is any?
What's essential is for a designer to be able to connect the user and the business together. Right. So really understanding, what are we trying to drive as a sustainable business? What are the outcomes that we wish to drive? And then connecting that with, well, what is the corresponding kind of user need or user problem that's going to be really compelling for us to solve that will make us the platform of choice for readers and writers. So making that connection of understanding our business problem and our user problems and marrying those two together and being able to understand how to communicate and make that link to the rest of the organization.
Right. That sounds amazing. And is there any aspect of an application or an applicant that is just like a hard no for you? Like as soon as you see that on the candidate's experience level, I don't know, any kind of reference which is like, don't apply if you have that checkbox ticked.
Wow. I think the
question great.
I think the quick answer to that is like, okay, here's my portfolio, right? Right. And there's no context. Here's my mock-ups, right? And I was like, well, how did you get there? How do you know that it worked? If you don't provide that context, then that won't be a fit for us.
Yeah. Okay. And I think for me, when I'm looking at portfolios as well, is like, no personality. Wattpad, we celebrate the weird. We like do some really fun, quirky things, and we would want you to bring your personalities and let that shine, because that's what we celebrate, diversity. So we want to know you. Like, okay, great, you're a designer. That's why you're applying. But who are you as a person? I mean, it doesn't have to get so personal, but it would be nice to just see, side hustles, hobbies, things like that, just so that we can get it's an online interaction. So just as much context as you can about the problems that you've solved, but then also you as a person, because ultimately that's the decision we're going to make. It's like, do we want to add you to the team?
Right. That's a really good point, Han. Thank you so much to both of you. This was really interesting. Even though I'm not looking for a job, but I really enjoyed learning about how the different squads work, and even the kind of squads you have, like the community kind of risk team that Han's on. I didn't think about that. When I think about Wattpad as a product, but sounds really interesting. I'm sure apart from Varun, a few other guys are thinking how to best connect with you folks. If they want to learn more questions,
Slack us on DesignX.
DesignX.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew and Han. Really appreciate you taking out the time and again, candidly answering some of these questions. I personally definitely, apart from the attendees that we've talked to in the past, find them really helpful when there's a lot more context around the team, not just the role and the company itself and the vision and goals you're working towards. So yeah, thank you so much. And again, I didn't bring those up because I didn't want to distract you, but there was a lot of appreciation for how nicely your trees are synced. So thank you so much. Thank you so much to everyone who tuned in. The link we'll put it. It's also in the YouTube description if you go to the YouTube video, but also in the DesignX Slack. There was a link mix-up, so we did share the updated link. And it's on the Wattpad company's website as well, on the careers page. So go ahead and apply. There are quite a few roles that are open right now. Thank you so much. Thank you, Andrew.
All right. Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone.
Holidays. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. We will. There is one more Design Jobs AMA coming up on Thursday. So I'll again update everyone on the Slack community, on DesignX Slack. I'll post the announcement. And it seems like a really good time. If you are an experienced designer with more than 3+ years of experience, there are quite a few companies that are hiring for these roles. Thank you so much, Ali. Thank you for the appreciation, Varun. Dilo, Michael, thank you so much. Olivera, that was a great question. It didn't fit with the context of the Wattpad AMA, but I absolutely understand this question has come up a few times, especially from folks early on, who are shipping a first product out and getting that first experience of working full-time in a company. So I'll definitely take that back and think about what we can do to help kind of bring up this conversation more in the community, and how we can help folks more earlier on in their journey. I will see you back on the DesignX Slack, and until the next AMA, bye.